Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and today we're going to work on the Shimano Symmetry. It's the 2500 FJ reel. I like this one. This one is a reel that Shimano made in Malaysia. And quick test says it's just in for a tune-up. Anthony sent this reel in to me, and we're going to get started on it. I'm going to show you how to take the reel apart, how to service it, how to make sure it's nice and clean, that it's got fresh oils and greases, and how it gets ready to go fishing again. So as I remove the exterior pieces, starting with the spool, which I removed by taking off the spool adjuster, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. And if you do subscribe to my channel, please hit the notification button. My channel covers all kinds of fishing reels: saltwater, freshwater, conventional, bait casters, spinning reels, and so on. And if you're interested in fishing reels, if you'd like to learn more about them, if you have one that you'd like to have serviced, and so on, well, watching the channel will teach you how to do it. That's the whole idea behind it, giving reels a second chance and teaching folks how to do it themselves. So if you like that, again, please subscribe and hit the notification button. Okay, we removed the handle. We did that by removing the side plate screw. There's a through bar on this handle, and generally when I remove the handle, I like to put the button right back on there so I don't lose it. And then I like to put them into a parts tray. I use the bottom of a fast food container, and the pieces that I take off that way kind of stay where I put them, and when it's time to reinstall, well, I know where to find them. All right, there's a series of spool adjuster washers here. There's 2 or 3 of them on this reel. And those control the height and the evenness of the line lay. And then there's a click ratchet. We have three or four of these, and sometimes they're a little stubborn coming off. If they are, you can kind of move them up one by one. They're a plastic washer. And again, if you find that your line is not laying evenly on a spool, if it looks like a cone or maybe a cyclone, where there's too much line up top or too much line below, then you add or remove the shims accordingly. So this one's got an awful lot of shims on it. That would normally indicate that the line would be spooling low, because the top of the spool would never come down to the level to allow the line there, but that's okay. I don't have line on this spool, so it's hard to tell. But if you found that you had all of your line gathering upside and a little below, kind of going downward like a funnel cloud in a tornado, well, if you remove 1 or 2 of those washers, it will level it out more. The same as the reverse is true. You would have to add a little bit, a shim or 2, and that would make that go away. All right, we have to take the rotor off on this in order to take the side plate off for service. That's because the side plate here goes up and under the carriage, and you can't get that side plate off without taking the rotor off first. I believe this is a 12mm wrench. That's usually the one I can't find in my parts tray. Oh, I have a deep socket, so let's go try that first. That works. This comes off in the traditional counterclockwise manner. If you don't have one of those old analog clocks and you don't know what counterclockwise is, turn the nut towards you. And if I say clockwise, turn it away from you. All right, this should walk up now. And this shows the old style of the anti-reverse clutch. This one actually has an override on it, and that's kind of one of the fun things. If you need to service this, I don't recommend taking this off unless you have a problem with it, because it's just a bunch of free spinning bearings and springs in there. But if you do need to take it off, do not take that black screw off unless you need to go in and service those springs. That black screw is holding on the top plate, which holds all those little roller bearings in place. So do it this way. Take the 3 screws out of there. Lay them on your table and make sure that they are all the same. And get your camera ready. You're going to take a picture here. And the reason you're going to take the picture is you want to know where this clutch lines up. as I noted, there is a override here. You can see it as you can swing here. That overline has the one section of this clutch that has the indentation in it. You'll notice that the rest of it is round. So when you go to do this, make sure that you take a picture so that you note the orientation of it. Sometimes it's easier to do it this way. Use your handle as like the 6 o'clock position, and 3 o'clock over here is where that black screw is. Just get your orientations right and you won't struggle with it as you go to reinstall. This should just lift off now. Underneath that clutch we have the gatherer, and we have a little shim washer here. This is a mistake that I see a lot of folks make, so I will point it out to you. This center stud, whatever I want to call this thing, I'm not sure, sleeve I guess, is tapered. It has a wide section and a narrow section. Too many times I've seen the reels come in saying I took my reel apart and the anti-reverse doesn't work. Well, this is the top side of it. If you install it in upside down, there's nothing for those ball bearings to grip, and your anti-reverse indeed will not work. So take that picture there and make sure that you know where that orientation is. We're getting closer to removing the top case then. This is a friction ring, kind of stops the chatter. This one has a screw holding the bail trip ramp on it. So we're going to want to take the bail trip off. And that's a small piece of part, so be careful with that. Those tend to shoot around, or at least they tend to shoot around with me. And then there's a little lock in the case here where that will sit. So we'll take that off and leave the screw in it, put that in my parts tray. Now you can see the rest of that trim ring, and that's again, that's a vibration ring. I guess it could be called an anti-vibration ring. Let's see if I can get this out. It's only an elastic band, you don't want to break it. There you go. All right, that's out now. All right, now we can go ahead and take the case off. We can do that by removing the bump guard first. That has a Phillips head screw holding that on. And this is where I will tell you that just be careful as you do this. These things can break, and if they break the clips, they are a nightmare to try and get to hold. All right, we've got a couple of things going on now. We have 1, 2, and 3 screws. 2 on one side, 1 on the other. Again, pictures will help here. Also noting that I believe the screw on the other side is a different size screw, and I also believe it's holding that little Crosswind Block piece in. So we're going to have to take our best shot at this here. That's 2. We have the one on the other side, and notice you have a little loop here on a bracket holding that in. And that this one should be smaller, and hopefully you can get the bracket out with the screw at the same time. Maybe not. We'll see how that plays out here. All right. Still don't quite have that yet. Well, I have it in the case. That's probably close enough. This side case is going to pull out now. Or should pull out. There we go. And this is the inner workings of your Symmetry. Well, that screw's stuck there, but if we see something popping, we're going to know, right? I don't know if the main gear can come out. It can. That's great. And what we want to do with this reel now is we just want to make sure it's nice and clean, and that the old greases are removed, and that the new greases go in, and that the reel keeps fishing for time to come. Alright, I'm going to take the 2 screws that were the side plate screws and put the side plate into there. I'm going to put those screws inside that plate. Next up then is the little screw that holds the axle shaft on to the crosswind block. I get, from time to time, I get the comments and my hands are in the way, and I'm trying to do better, but I apologize if you're seeing more of my hands. These are small parts, and I really don't want to lose those small parts. That's in. Okay, the side plate little piece just fell out there. Alright, now we can remove the axle shaft, and we should be able to remove our pinion gear now. And we're just going to leave the bottom of the case for a moment. Let's go service these two. Most of the time the axle shaft is nice and smooth, and all you have to do is wipe that clean. When you do, just check for burrs and to make sure that there's nothing that's accumulated on there that would cause it to ride rough going through. I believe that's a shielded bearing. We're going to oil this bearing. Just going to set that off to the side, and then we want to grab that pinion gear, and I'm going to use a wire brush to pull through the channels of the pinion gear so that I make sure that they're clean of all the debris. If you found that you had some old greases in there, go ahead and use a pick. I have a metal one, but you could use a toothpick or any little brad finishing nail, whatever, just to clean out the old greases. All right, speaking of grease, we're going to re-lube then. I'm going to use Penn Precision Real Grease. I don't have a preference for real greases, but I do have a request of you. If you are doing your reel, please use fishing reel grease. I don't care the manufacturer, but I do care that it is fishing reel grease. I'm going to take that. I'm going to take the bearing. I'm going to slide that right back into the case. That way we won't lose it at a later time. Get some of these tools out of the way. Next up, let's clean that main gear. I'm going to use a cotton swab to do that. And that's the original Shimano grease there. It's that whitish grease. And what you should be doing during your reel repair, you want to inspect. You want to make sure all of these teeth are nice and clean. If you found out that they had some old dirt in it, let's go do the same thing. This time I'm using a hard brush. I think the last time I used a metal brush. It doesn't matter. Just what matters is that the cavities in between the teeth are nice and clean. Sometimes that bearing is not going to come off. It gets peened on there because of over-tightening the handle. As long as that bearing's spinning, you don't have to spend too much time. Just pull it up, make sure that it spins, and just set that gear off to the side. All right, here's the little part of the reel that we want to make sure that we address here. This one's got a little bit of a different approach to that crosswind block. It's an open block. I'm just going to find my little tool here. This bar comes out. That's why you had that little cover on the bottom of the side plate. Pull that out. When you take that bar out, notice two things. That this one is a continuation of the bar, but this side is smaller. I don't know how well you can see that, but there's a smaller side. That smaller side goes up. I'm going to leave that right on my table because we're going to come right back to it. What's nice about this reel is that this reel has metal moving parts. There's no plastic in this one. And we're just going to remove these parts so that we can do the same thing. We want to clean the case. Get the old greases off. There's not much in there, no grease. I want to oil that back bearing like we just did the front bearing. You want to check the teeth on your transition. I guess this is probably has something to do with why it's called symmetry. You have a different approach here from a cross-winding. You have that main gear is driving two gears. It's this one's actually transferring some of the strength off of that main gear. You can see how it intersects with the back here, which is where the main drive is. And then you have a smaller gear, which is driving your oscillation gear. Now that's different than most of the setups, which go directly from main gear to oscillation gear. All right, we're going to grab the grease brush after checking the teeth. They're all nice and clean. No need for a brush there. And we're going to get grease on all facets of this You want it behind because it's going to roll on the case. You want it on the front because the crosswind block is going to ride there. And you want it on the teeth because that's what's going to intersect with that smaller gear. Once you do that, let's put that gear back in. Make sure it's seated properly. This is the stud for the crosswind block. You want to do the same thing here. And this is where pictures would have helped you before. You want to make sure that you noted that the screw for the axle shaft is up. Okay, this should slide in by kind of working it in and down. And I think there's actually a little slot that this rides in. Yep, that looks right. Okay, with that installed, we can bring that rod back in. Remember, the small indented side goes up into the case. And you kind of have to turn it upside down to see that. And this thing, from time to time, it slips out. Don't panic. Take your time, take a deep breath. Eventually you'll get it locked in there. Okay, I'm slipping off of this. That's what's happening here. I turned it upside down and I moved the gear out. And as I mentioned, just kind of have your patience. So if you have any questions on this reel or any reel in particular, maybe you're wondering about, the Shimano lineup, maybe you're considering purchasing one of these, you want to know a little bit more, if you ask those questions, I will try to answer them for you. All right, we have that axle shaft goes next. Very light coat of grease. Let's bring that through the top, bring it through the crosswind block, and align the hole in that axle shaft with the hole in the crosswind block. Okay, we found it. I've just got it started. So let's go ahead and screw that down then. Make sure these are tight. These can vibrate out pretty easily. So you want to make sure that everything gets tightened down. Whenever I hear somebody say my reel is working fine if I back off the screw, but when I tighten it down it jams, so I'm just going to leave it. No, that's not the answer. That means that you've got some kind of torsion or something going on in there that needs to be corrected. Please take the time to see what may be causing the binding and correct that rather than just leaving a screw that's not fully tightened. All right, we can reinstall that then. I have the case now. Go ahead and put the case on. Nice click, I like that. And the first one I'm going for here is to put the one with the paddle clip on it in so that that little bar does not slip out while I continue to tighten the rest of this down. You can see how the little notch there is filled by that little bracket, and we're good. Turn it over to the other side. This is where, if you were wondering what screws matched up with which, or if you had some other concern about the reinstallation of the reel, you go back to your pictures, you take a look. So I only use hand tools. I don't use power tools. I'm often asked about the mechanical screwdrivers. I don't like them. We were just talking about torsion before on a case. I've seen that the torque on those does have an adverse effect on cases, and I would recommend that you don't use it. If you need an assist, use it, but don't tighten them fully down. Make sure that you leave them a little bit short and go finish by hand. Time for that anti-vibration piece. I guess I can put the bump guard on while it's here. And then the other value of having this parts tray is you can continually look over there, and well, if you see something in that parts tray that you thought should have been on the reel already. Well, go ahead and take a look at that. All right, we know we have that little hold down, the ramp for the bail trip. Let's go ahead and put that on. I did a good job of keeping a little screw in there until it was time to use that little screw. There's a slot where this falls into below. There's a stud below and a slot. To properly seat that bail trip, it needs to merge the two. So it should be laying flat on your case there. All right, this is the next step. I'm going to take that collar. Remember, the wide side goes up top. If you have the narrow side up top, it's not going to work. Now look below for the override that's going to lock in with this stud here on that override arm. And then make sure when you put this down that all of the posts are nice and tight before you go and put those screws on. Don't try to screw this down if it's not tightened up. And then we have the three. Doesn't matter what order you put them in, and doesn't matter which screw goes in which, because all three of these screws were the same. And if you're having trouble figuring out what hole the screw goes in, just look for the post that's extended coming off. There's a lot of holes on the top of this one for whatever reason. So just find where that stud is and find the hole over the top of it. You can take these off and you can service these. A lot of times these anti-reverse clutches fail because there's a lot of dirt and grease in them. You can do it. It's a nightmare. I've done it, and I'll be honest with you, I've watched somebody on YouTube show me how to do it. So if you're, for some reason, if you took this apart, and you're struggling with getting this back together, go ahead and search that on YouTube for the Shimano bearing, and I think you'll be able to find that. All right, we just put the two shim washers that belong on the top. I'm going to just turn this right now, make sure that I have an anti-reverse, and I do. That's a wonderful thing. I'm going to come back to our parts tray then. We're going to grab the click ratchet. So that's the one that makes the noise when the spool is turning backwards. You can see the click tongue inside the spool here. And when those two kind of skip over those prongs, that's when you're going to get the click, click, click of your anti-reverse, or of your drag washer going out notification. Bait alarm, I guess, might be another word for it. All right, now we're going to put those little plastic washers on. I'm going to put them all back on because that's the way they came. But again, if you find that this is going high or low in the spooling, in this case I would bet that one of these would have to come off. They usually come from the factory with one or two and then one or two spares. That's usually the way that they're preset, and they leave it to you to adjust. Oops, put that on too soon. Let's try this again. You might want to use a rotor on this reel. All right, let's go ahead and put the rotor on. Easy to make mistakes. Take your time. Have a sense of humor. We're all not perfect, that's for sure. And have a little patience and everything will work out just fine. All right, there's also a tie-down screw, if you recall. Let's go ahead and put the tie-down screw in. Now we can go ahead and put that click ratchet back on. And we can go back and put all these others on as well. You'll also notice on these click ratchets that there's varying heights. They're not all the same. Some are thicker and some are thinner. So just use the ones as you can. to get it level. That's up to you. All right. We want to take the spool and make sure that that's serviced. I think this spool, these washers may be felt washers in here. So let's take the retaining ring off. Let's go ahead and pull the drag stack. We want to clean out the cavity in this reel. Use a paper towel. I always go with the least abrasive cleaning agent first. If you find that you have some stubborn corrosion on there or something, you may want to do something a little bit more aggressive. But if you can get away with a paper towel or a cotton swab, please use that. Let's see what we have. Yep, we have felt washers. Now, there's nothing wrong with felt washers. Some people have the notion that a felt washer is a cheap washer. Well, that may be the case, but there's nothing wrong with them, particularly in these lower stress reels. This is a 2500 series. It's not out there catching 50, 60 pound fighting fish. And these washers, you've got a good max drag with the 3 set here. You're going to find that there's 2 of these round washers with a indentation or a square in the center. Those are called key washers. They go top and bottom. And you can find one with a circle in the middle and 2 tabs that goes in the middle of this. So that's what I'm searching. That's called an eared washer. All right, that goes on. So back to the felt washers. Shimano uses them. Penn uses them. Shakespeare uses them. There's all kinds of companies out there that use these. If you find that you're tearing them up, and this has happened in Penn Fierces for sure that I've seen, now you can switch over to, in the Fierce case, you can use the HT100s that Fierce makes, or you can go to the aftermarket and get Carbon Tex drag washers. But there's no need to go out and get replacement washers just because they're felt. All right, we've serviced that. We've restored returned the retainer clip in there. We'll load that up. We'll put the handle on. We'll give it a test. See how we do. After you've tightened down your cap, let's make sure that we grab that handle. Bring the handle in. That's a square handle. Just merge it into the main gear. And this is a reversible handle. This was set up on the left side crank, but if you want to switch it over to the right hand side, that's easy enough. One more thing we want to do, just oil the slots where the bail intersects with the rotor. Oil your roller. Give it a test. Well, there we go. Very nice example of the Shimano Symmetry reel. We have the anti-reverse override working. We do. Lock in. Very good. So that's it. That's your Shimano Symmetry 2500 FJ. That's how to take it apart, how to service it, and how to keep it running for years to come. I hope you've enjoyed that. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. To all of our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for everything it is that you do. To everyone, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. And have a great day.